Good afternoon, everyone. My guest hasn't showed up yet. I don't know if he hasn't received my link through StreamYards yet or anything of the like. It's okay. We're going to start anyways because I don't like not starting on time. I don't know if anybody's watching or anybody is going to watch. Hopefully, we get a bit of interaction today if possible. Um, This week's been pretty rough on me overall, I'll be honest. Had a lot to do at work and a lot to do in life. Every once in a while, we had some odd situations coming up. And hopefully, my content didn't drop in quality because of it. We only really released one full on analysis this week for Indigo Children 3. I've got the whole Indigo Children series now in stock, so I should be able to do the rest of the series. I might actually do a rush on this. Every time I've got a slot empty, I will put an Indigo Children in so we can get through that series. I can put it in a long box and let it die there. No, probably not. It's probably something that I will revisit every once in a while, especially since there's a follow-up to the series that's supposed to come out at some point. Who knows if it actually sold enough to warrant that? I think it did, since it did have a second and third printing for the first few issues. It's always a little bit weird when we're dealing with these kinds of books. So there were a few things going on as well in the indie comic sphere this week. A lot of talk about all sorts of things. And one of the big talk was about getting your books in stores. I do think it's a good thing for any comic artist to get their books in stores, not only because it improves their standing in a way. You do look a little bit more professional if you've got something in the store, but it also increases the number of places you can get some revenue from. We had all sorts of people putting some salt in the matter. We had, of course, Patrick Higgins that was on the channel here a while back, a few weeks back, the creator of Niobe, who's an extremely big proponent of having his books in stores. He's really, really proud about that, and his new link with Antarctic Press, which is a very good link, in my opinion. It's great that he has that opportunity now. And overall, I mean, I did see his book in the ordering catalog for Diamond on my local comic shop. Even though I supported his crowdfunder, I did put some of those books aside on my local comic shop, and hopefully it motivates them to get a few more of them in stock, so maybe other people can get some Niobes as well. Pretty sure Tyler Carpenter would also want some of his mangas to be on shelves somewhere. I've seen North American mangas or manga style books on shelves at my local comic shop. A few of them from Webtoons, a few of them from the French version of Webtoons, more or less. So it was a pretty interesting thing to see, in my opinion. So it is something that could happen. And even if you get, pennies on the dollars on this, you sell your book $5 and you get, maybe $1 out of that. It's not a terrible thing to happen. Of course, the whole idea with the publisher going through Diamond, going through the comic store, is where I have a bit of a harder time. Really, Diamond should be cut out of that equation altogether, or in my opinion, at least in North America. It's really at this point just a scam, or a scam middleman that's there to take your money and not give you much in return, because they don't promote your book. They don't do anything outside of distributing them, I guess. And it doesn't really bring anything to the table. We had Luke Stone last week talking about his own distribution platform with Iron Age Distribution. That might be a little bit better because it does have the feeling that this one will actually be actively promoting you outside of, Diamond putting you in a big book, and hopefully someone flips through the Diamond magazine and enjoys the book you've put on there. So yeah, that's a thing that's been going on. You've had people like EVS as well, the Frog creator, who was going on more or less about how he doesn't want his book to be going in stores, at least not through Diamond, because he doesn't see it as a win in his case. Of course, Ethan Van Sciver has been in comic shops for the longest time. I mean, he was working for DC for the longest time. So he already has that level of support and that level of recognition that some of the newer or smaller creators don't have. So for him, it's very different overall than for someone like Jon Dexter, like we would be talking to hopefully today, or a Higgins, Carpenter, mid-tier creators that would probably need to have some presence in store to boost their profile a little bit and potentially move more units in the long run. It's a little bit weird overall here. Of course, you see those differences there with those creators. There's an advantage to being in store for people like me and probably a few others here, where you skip the whole portion of having to pay for shipping or actually having to wait for your book eternally. I do think when we're dealing with crowdfunding and when we're dealing with creator owned content, that it's not a bad thing if we have more of that kind of content in the store. Stores themselves should get a section specifically for that smaller creator owned, creator published content. Because let's face it, the bigger and larger companies now are not reaching out as they should for those smaller creators because they've got their own things going on. So comic books overall being in store, I think, is a good thing. Maybe they actually need to expand overall outside of comic shops as well. Newsstands are not super frequent or super common nowadays compared to how they were a long time ago, but it would be a good place for many of those comics to be showing up. About the only thing you can find in newsstand for English newsstand is Archie comics. Well, in the French world, in Quebec at least, you can get your Archies in French, but you also generally have a few of the local comics. You're going to have Agent Jean, you're going to have L'Univers est un ninja, generally on the racks. Another thing that you're generally going to see on the racks are the new big titles coming out. If a new Lucky Luke or a new Asterix comes out, it's going to be on the rack somewhere. Or maybe have its own dedicated rack. Of course, those are books coming from larger publisher, Dupuis, Tintin, with Le Lombard. Those are large publishers. So it's normal that they have more reach. But they don't target bookstores only or comic shops only. They will put stuff out in those newsstand. Of course, in newsstand in Quebec, you can generally get Magazine Spirou, sometimes Tintin, a few of these other smaller magazines as well, which do move a small number of units. It's not a massive amount, at least not here in Quebec, but it's something that still has recognition and still is moving units. Moving units is really the important bit here. You need to be able to get people to read your book, because that's really what it is in the end. That's the way to grow your audience, is to have more and more people read your books. And it's not a bad thing if even if you make a few pennies on a dollar, like EVS was saying. It's probably not a bad thing, because not only you're going to make a few pennies on a dollar, of course, but you're also going to grow that readership. And if you do more crowdfunding, that's not a bad thing either, because the more readers you have, the more people will go and follow your crowdfunding efforts, because there's a lot of crowdfunding going on right now, and not all of it is easy to access, easily promoted, or just things that people really want to talk about. Let's see here. I want to share this. That's a post I put up this morning in response to Tyler Draw and Talk. He had a discussion about the shadow battle between indie creators going on Kickstarter. He is very specific about Kickstarter in this particular thread that he brought up. And while I said like crowdfunders in general, for him, it really is a Kickstarter thing, because Kickstarter is able to finance books on its own, while other platforms have a much more difficult time getting you fully supported without the help of something else going on. But I do think Fund My Comics and Indiegogo, I mean, you choose the one that fits you the best. Fund My Comic is great, 43% platform fee, 2% if you start out with your campaign only on them. So it's not a bad platform. Oh, I think John is showing up. That's good. Let me get him in. Let's just see here. I'm just going to finish my thought on this here. So IGG, Fund My Comics, I mean, you find the one that is the most advantageous to you, but you should also always look at alternatives when your campaign is over, when your campaign is moving in the right direction. I mean, once a campaign is over and you've actually delivered, it wouldn't be a bad idea to go on alternative platforms like Global Comics, or even possibly Drive-Thru Comics, to get your book out to a more general public. I don't know what Global Comics cut is on the books they sell. They have that monthly subscription you can take as well, and if someone reads your book with the subscription service, you get a cut of how much the person's subscription is. So that's the way Global Comics kind of works. I've bought a few comics off of them at this point and not taken their monthly service, because I already have enough books to read. I can't, just justify paying an extra thing on top of it with all the books I have still in my backlog. Drive-Thru, it's a 20% cut that they take off your books. There's probably different packages or level that are available through them if you sell a huge amounts. I don't think it's a bad thing, because either of those as well, they do give you a signing service. So when someone buys a book off Global or off Drive-Thru Comics, there's a signing on the PDF file, which signs it to yourself. So it's a bit more secure. There's less chances there's going to be piracy regarding your book in PDF form. We did have that discussion with Tyler back in the start of that series, where he was saying like, I don't really care if people pirate my book, because it'll get more people to read it. That's true. And we said just now that people reading your books is a good thing because that's what drives engagement and drives return customers. Not a bad thing. Let's see here. All right. I'll go back to my post. John, are you there?
Yep. How's it going?
I am doing okay. So it's been a rough week for me.
Oh,
Like
I'm
I keep
sorry.
saying, just been very busy compared to how I sometimes end up being. This has been a rough month, I would say. It's the end of the fiscal year
Yeah.
for most businesses. So for most businesses, it's going to be a rough day overall.
Yeah, but
How are you doing?
good, good. Just building a house, getting that Kickstarter campaign
Mm-hmm.
going, and working a full-time job. Other than that, not much.
Well, a lot of people in the indie sphere still need to work a full-time job, unfortunately.
Oh yeah.
Said I've been lucky to actually talk to a few people who've just migrated from being a someone with a job and a hobby doing comics to doing comics full time.
Yeah, that's the dream.
But in some cases, I have to say, it kind of fell on Tyler as an example. He lost his job, so he decided, well, let's do comic full time instead. So
Yeah,
sometimes weird
I love
things
I
happen.
love his. I listen to his podcast almost weekly.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great podcast, very informative.
It's very nice that he's going through it as a on his podcast now, more as the business end of things, which I think is what a lot of people need in
Oh,
this
absolutely.
industry, which is kind of what I've been doing as well here with these talks on Saturdays. So right now you're funding for Dime Store Detective Part 3.
Yes, yeah, issue 3. It's got issue 1 and 2 catch up tiers as well.
Mm-hmm.
It's $17 just for the PDFs, or you can get all 3 issues for I believe it's $35. So it's pretty reasonable for a Kickstarter comic, and it's 28 pages where most Kickstarter comics are 21, 24 pages. So it's a pretty decent price for the cost of what goes
Mm-hmm.
into it.
I I mean the current standard in the industry is 24 pages,
Yeah.
honestly. So I was surprised this week. I reviewed Indigo Children, the third book in Indigo Children, and it was a 32-page comic, which was the standard back in the days. So I was a bit confused by that.
Yeah. Yeah, it'd be nice to do. I mean, it'd be nice to do all 8 issues because it's an 8-issue run in one issue, but it would be very, very expensive. And I don't know if it'd pay off. So,
That's what I was thinking here, looking at how it's going and how it is for this particular book. Having larger issues probably would benefit it a little bit,
mhm.
but it's not easy financing from the first level, right? And
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, at least on your side, something that I like that you've done on most of your campaigns is this year, the where the money is going
Yeah,
portion.
it's definitely not going to me, as most creators will tell you that do a Kickstarter. Um, you pocket very little, if any.
Hmm. Well, this is what I never managed to get Mr. Desper on the channel. I spoke with him on the back end, and he's another indie creator. He had let's say, a decent amount campaign with the medicals. And in the end, he said, like, yeah, I maybe made $500 off of it. And it was a $13,000 campaign in the end or something like that. So,
Oh wow, yeah,
but he
yeah,
did
they're not
create
cheap.
a lot of swag that he's going to repeat on each of his issues. So,
Yeah, yeah, that I'm sure that helps. I mean, personally, I just buy the comic and just throw all the swag away. I've never found any that, but I guess mostly when I buy somebody's Kickstarter, it's to support, just to help support them. It's not because I'm a fan of their work. I just try to give back a little bit, especially when they've backed my campaign.
Uh, I'm not personally a huge fan of horror in general. So for me, Dime Store Detective at first, I wasn't a huge draw to me
Yeah,
personally. But having read it yesterday, I personally really enjoy it, or I enjoyed it, I should say. It's more, how can I say? I think thematically it works really well, and it works in a genre that we're used to, let's say,
yeah.
and it works fairly well as a story, which is very nice to have here.
Yeah, especially being the first two issues. You know how I set up this one, it's the first four issues kind of set up the last four issues, which are the payoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And but still I try to keep it as entertaining as I can telling the story. But yeah, through the first two issues, it's really setting up this world. So if you enjoyed the setup, which is always, you as a writer, you get caught bogged down in exposition. So I did my best not to give too much exposition, but let the images kind of tell the story. So
Mm-hmm.
if you like the first two issues, then you're gonna even like it more as the series goes along.
Mm-hmm. I do like one thing here. It's the thing that I've been bringing up in tons of reviews that I've done. Flashbacks, often enough in American comics, you have no sign or real significant
Yeah, it
idea
could be
of what
very
it is.
confusing.
Mhm. In some cases it works just fine, but in some cases it doesn't. You decided to go with black and white for the 1981 portion of your comic. Why did you choose that particular approach?
Mostly, well, it's kind of twofold, but the biggest reason was so it wasn't confusing for people when I jump back and forth. So,
Mm-hmm.
in the story, it takes place in the present, and that's in color, with Detective Donald Mackinder on the trail of this serial killer. It's the third victim of the serial killer that he finds that's left in this Christ-like pose in the Appalachian Mountains, and she's left over around the same area that the detective's father and uncle buried multiple bodies back in 1981. So we go back and forth from present to 1981 when the detective is 8 years old. And it was really because there's going to be so much jumping back and forth. Almost half the story takes place in 1981.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to confuse readers because once you start confusing the reader, then you've lost them.
Mm-hmm.
One of my oh mistakes with alpha dogs is as a writer, it's obviously very clear to you, and I figured, well, I'm just gonna cut the main characters, cut her hair short, and when it's in the past, give her long hair, give the guy a goatee, or cut off the goatee, and
Mm-hmm.
but it still was confusing for people, and some people had said that they had gotten confused, so I wanted to alleviate that and make sure that wasn't an issue with Dexter Detective because there is so much back and forth, but also it kind of gives it that noir feel, and that's really what I was trying to achieve with the comic. Kind of a throwback to the old. Obviously it's called Dime Store Detective, was a take on, the old dime store novels,
Mm-hmm.
magazines from the 30s and 40s. Not so much because they entertained me. I love the artwork. The cover art had a
Mm-hmm.
style on its own, and the first actual for issue 3, the first cover A is a throwback cover to those old dime store pulp novels of back then.
It's this one here.
Yes, yep, yep.
Yeah.
So if you ever see type in like pulp novels or dime store novels, you'll see it. It's a really dramatic scene of a detective or whatever. If you can tell if it was done in the 50s, it was usually a mad scientist, and
Mm-hmm.
it's always a woman tied up. So I wanted to kind of pay tribute to that, and like I said, that's kind of one of the feels for the book that I wanted to achieve was that old hard boiled, noir books and film.
I mean, this is very common in French bande dessinée as well. That kind of, I mean, I always separate French bande dessinée in two groups or two major groups. between the regular comedy, which is the most common in a way, and you've got the pulp bande dessinée. And this is
Yeah.
still a style that is used a lot in Franco-Belgian books.
Okay.
So for some worldly readers, I mean, I'm French, so well, French. I'm French Canadian, so
Yeah.
for me, it's a very it's evocative here. It looks like what I would expect some of those comics to look like. So that it is this cover, I think, is the best one of the three in a way. Uh,
Yeah.
and the one that you use for the title card here is also pretty good. This one here has more of a Batman feeling to it in a way with the
Yeah.
cape figures at the bottom.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I wanted to have a very much a movie poster look to it.
Hmm. And those would attract the eye very well. So I do think those are effective covers, in my opinion. The branding as well is pretty good with Dime Store Detective, how it's written at the top. It's an
Yeah, I hope
effective
so.
branding.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that would attract the eye of someone if he saw it on a rack. As an example, I was talking before you came in about people wanting their books in stores, which I think is not the dream for everyone, but would it be something that you would like to have more of your books in stores?
Oh, absolutely. I haven't tried Diamond yet or anything. I was trying to get a little more books and get a little more of a reputation before I tried Diamond. And
Well,
or there's
the art thing with Diamond is the minimum order. I mean, you need to
yeah.
have a fairly big amount, but it is something that you would be interested in to go
Oh
and
yeah, absolutely. I have my book in about I don't know 6 local comic book stores. And some of them do fairly well.
Mhm.
I'm actually doing a sign. If anybody who listening is going to be in Lansing, Michigan on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a signing for the release of Alpha Dogs 4. So
Oh,
come
well, that's.
say hi. It's between 5:30 and 7.
I mean, why not? Where are you located right now?
Mid Michigan.
Mid Michigan. Okay.
Yep. Yep.
Midwest. Okay.
Yeah. It's sort of the Midwest. I'm kind of literally stuck in between. If anybody, so I'm in between Lansing, which is the capital of Michigan,
Hmm.
and Jackson, which is one of the bigger cities. I'm
Hmm.
right in between there.
Well, at least you're central. If you need to send your book to local shops, there should be
Yeah,
some around.
yeah, and it's nice too where I'm at because it's kind of we have quite a few comic book conventions here in Michigan, and
Hmm.
so I've went to quite a bit of them. So, and I've got actually one on Saturday in Saginaw.
Oh, are you? Do you have your own table, or are you sharing the table with someone?
No, I buy my own tables. I've got enough
Okay.
product to fill up a table. So, and I'll also be at we have a really big one. It's one of the biggest ones that in America. It's called the Motor City Comic Con,
Hmm.
close to Detroit, and I have a table there. That'll be November 12th through I think the 14th. I just found out Ralph Macchio and Johnny Lawrence will be there, so I'm pretty excited. I'm a huge Karate Kid fan, so
No, it had a huge revival, obviously, and
yeah,
it's
it was a great show too.
I mean, it's surprising. It's surprising how well
Yeah,
that did with the Cobra Kai thing. I'm honestly surprised of how
yeah, I am
well that
too. I
did.
mean, yeah, spinoffs usually are pretty horrendous. I think you can probably count on one hand how many spinoffs were successful. Frasier from Cheers and this
Hmm.
one, a few other ones. But so yeah, I was shocked too, and it was really entertaining. And I mean, it's a little cornbally, but the nostalgia factor alone is worth watching it.
Oh yes, and I think Dime Store Detective kind of get that retro feel to it
Yeah,
in the past scenes. I would have gone with something else than black and white, probably personally.
yeah, more of
Uh, like an old newspaper feel to the color of it. Still
yeah,
black and
that's a
white,
good
but
one too.
something like
Yeah,
that. I don't know. It's a thing I've been like I said when I've been reviewing quite a few comics, and I mean almost all comics nowadays start with a flashback.
yeah, yeah.
Y-
Got to have the exposition.
yeah, that's it. but and I would always like to have a visual reference to the flashback. I mean, in manga, it's really easy. The pages that are flashbacks, the back of the page is black, so it's really easy in manga to know there's a flashback going on. Of course, it's a
Yeah.
different style, but
Yeah, I was thinking I was playing with the sepia tones too, that yellowish.
Mhm.
I thought that would have been good, but then that would have cost me money. So I don't have to pay to color it if it's in black and white. So
that
it
is
was
a
a help.
that is a very good investment.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it gets expensive to do those pages.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. It's very expensive to produce a comic book. If you want to do one of somewhat quality, you can get a cheap artist for $60, and but the quality's not going to be there. The coloring won't be there. So I
mhm.
definitely paid up, but you're also asking people to hand over, sometimes triple what it costs to buy the comic book in the store. So you want to give them a pretty good quality book for the price.
Mhm. Well, $7 for the digital copy is a decent price, I believe, personally.
Yeah, for 28
Um,
pages.
because I've seen everything for a digital copy between $5 to $15 is what I normally see on those kinds of platforms.
Yeah,
So,
they definitely get a little expensive because really for the creator, it's actually cheaper to buy the print than at least for me, than the digital, because the printing for me it costs me about $2 to print up a comic, but you're asking double for the print. So you
mhm.
really, it's for me, it's better to have it printed, but still, it is a lot easier work just to mail the digital version.
Hmm. Well, honestly, in my case, it's all the shipping that's
Oh
always
yeah,
the
shipping's
issue.
crazy.
Since I'm in Canada, it's
Oh
really
yeah.
weird. The shipping price for US to Canada is
Oh
massive.
yeah, I just shipped to Canada for two comic books. It was $23. So it's, yeah, the shipping, but and then to I shipped to this one guy in Australia once, and it was one comic book, and it was $43 to ship it. So
Good, good
yeah,
lord.
I know it was.
Not the easiest thing, eh?
No, it's well, it's expensive for him. He paid for the shipping, but
Mhm.
now
It-
he just buys the digitals.
yeah, that's what I really don't like digital personally.
No,
I'm a
neither do I.
physical guy. But for a lot of books, I mean, right now I only have your books open. But I mean, I've got a decent number of digital copies just because it's what I end up having. Of course, for me doing reviews, sometimes it's easier if then they're
Yeah.
digital to do screen caps rather than taking pictures of the different pages like I do. But it's still fun to do. I was thinking this week after having read Dime Store Detective Part 1 and 2 to maybe move what I was going to do on Friday, which was above Maran, to actually do a review of Dime Store Detective
Oh, cool.
at this
I
point.
appreciate it. Since I think I'm 19 days into the campaign,
Hmm.
about 60% funded, which funded is just the least amount you can lose. It's still a lot. It costs more than $2,000. Anybody tell you? But that's like
Hmm.
and you make some up on I do pretty good at the comic book conventions. I just started doing them. Last year was the start.
Hmm.
And I've done quite a few this year. So I'll sell about 60 to 75 comics at a convention. So, I mean, so I grab them as they go by.
I mean, um, having the most ways of selling your comic is the best in the end. Have you
Yeah.
reached out to stores directly to see if they
Uh,
would carry your books?
yeah, yeah. Like not to very many. Like I said, because shipping is expensive, for
Hmm.
because they'll usually a store will want to cut about 50%, if they're really nice,
Hmm.
35. So after I ship them, because I don't ship a whole lot of comics, then you're not making that much money. So I've been usually just staying local where it's, less than 2 hour drive to the
Yeah.
comic book store. So like I said, I've got them in 6 comic book stores. I've reached out to a few. I'm still waiting to hear back. So
Hmm.
um, I've like I said, I've done decent at the comic stores for somebody nobody knows. If they put local creator, it sells a lot better.
Oh, obviously, I am sure
So
of that.
yeah,
You do have packages on your current Kickstarter that I would think would be for retailers,
yeah,
like that times 10 or that mega bundle here. I mean, that would
yeah,
be good for some people as well, because some people would want to have the whole thing.
yeah. I try to bundle up and put a pretty cut the price down quite a bit. And people that the more that are sold, the better. So
Hmm.
I've tried to really make a big cut so they'll be in their best interest to buy them in bulk.
Hmm. But yeah, I do find it interesting that your approach is a little bit different from what I've seen with other creators, and it's fun to talk about it in a way.
Yeah.
It is a bit difficult from what I understand. Your current campaigns is not financed yet after 10 days or so.
Yeah. I
So
don't have the big fan base that probably some of the other people you talk to,
mhm,
but it's a process. Like it's I'm only this is my second year. I'm 2 years. I started in 2021,
mhm,
March of 2021. So I haven't been doing it for very long,
mhm.
but it's a slow process of building your name up and getting product out there for people.
Have you, for building your readership, have you gone on a lot of channels, or have you reached out to some bigger creators to try to see what you could do? Or
Not really. I've reached out to a lot of channels. I've done a lot of interviews. But as far as I've offered my comic to a few big name people via email and stuff. The very
Mhm,
few that I have and haven't got a response to read it, except for the one person that read it was Chris Condon. He is the
mhm,
writer of the Texas Blood and the Enfield Gang Massacre. And I sent it out. I've sent it out to about 6 people, I guess, not a lot, but
mhm,
his Texas Blood is similar in genre to Dime Store Detective,
mhm,
and he enjoyed it a lot and wrote a review that I could share. So I hopefully got a few backers just off his review. So,
mhm.
but yeah, not too many people want to read anybody. It'd be like me being a big name and some unknown person say, "Hey, will you read my comic?" 9.9 times out of 10, you figure it's going to be a crap comic.
Well, that's always a potential issue. On my end, I found Alpha Dogs, your other comic, just through someone sharing it on Twitter, and I was somewhat intrigued by it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I like Dime
Yeah,
Store Detective a lot more
yeah.
personally. Um,
They're
it has
definitely two different genres.
it's two very different. It's two very different animals.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
a pun. But I do. There are things that I like about alpha dogs, especially the dogs, obviously.
Yeah. I know. You said you weren't a big fan of the humans, but
Well,
humans are
an
not as fun
unfortunate
as
side
dogs.
effect.
Yeah, people definitely when they read Alpha Dogs, they just want the dogs. So, but you got to have the humans in there. And I mean, you know, humans do some despicable things, and as you read in the story.
Hmm.
So,
It's a
but
it's a different thing, obviously, from Dime Store Detective, which is more of a detective thriller. So obviously, there's that big difference between the two. But overall, I do enjoy it in a way. It's different from what I was expecting in a way. So not a bad
yeah,
thing.
yeah. I think the nice thing about my comics is you're not going to read another one of them on the stores shelves. I think my work is very original. Dumpster Detective, while it has a familiar feel, I don't think it's there's not too many hard boiled noir / supernatural stories out there. So I think it's kind of almost its own subgenre to a certain extent. It's a very original story. Usually, it's the best way to describe it is kind of Stephen King's It meets True Detective.
Mhm.
We kind of go back and forth like those stories, and it's very much got its own. It's got this evil entity, this evil force that um, is awakened, sort of say, trapped in the Appalachian Mountains for hundreds of years. That two bootleggers inadvertently released when they're trying to find a new hiding place for their still. Possesses the uncle, and then not to give too much away of the story, but we kind of go back and forth, and perhaps this evil entity has returned in the present to get the attention of Detective Mackinder, whose family, um, I don't want to give too much again, but whose family was very much
Involved
taken
with it,
apart by
let's
this,
say.
involved with this evil force back in 1981.
Mean, I find it, well, not funny, but I find it special. In this case here, we're dealing with moonshiners in 1981.
Yeah,
I really associate the moonshiners with the Prohibition era in the U.S.
you must not have watched Dukes of Hazzard very much.
No, I am not a Dukes of Hazzard person. It was available in Quebec in
Was it?
French. It was.
Yeah, yeah. Dukes of Hazzard is very much an American TV show, but
Mm.
I've also described it as kind of like a very dark episode of Dukes of Hazzard, because there's the two cousins that drive up a souped up muscle car that are trying to
The
outrun the
cops, yeah.
police in this place. It's northern Georgia, as opposed to um,
Mm.
Dukes of Hazzard. It was in Hazard, Kentucky. So,
Mhm.
but same that we still had down there. They still had dry counties, and they were driving their really cool muscle cars. I wanted the car to kind of be a character in the story, much like the General Lee or Knight Rider or the
Mhm.
Supernatural car. The 1973 Plymouth Barracuda that the Moonshiners drive, and the father hands it down to the son. And in the present, in the story, the detective, that's what he drives, is his dad's old Barracuda.
I mean, that's the kind of car you can actually still fix. So it's
Yeah,
understandable that it still works.
yeah. It was definitely a different animal back then than it is today. You got to be a computer genius now to change the oil in your car.
I think changing the oil is about the only thing you're able to
Yeah,
do in a car. Well, and the tires,
yeah, and the
obviously.
windshield wipers maybe.
I broke a windshield washer, a windshield wiper arm because of
Yeah,
that.
they're
Oh.
yeah. Oh, I know, I know. I've come pretty close. I've scratched my windshield before trying to change them when I was younger. They're pretty slick now.
Well, once you understand the hook, the important bit is understanding how the hook works on them. And
Yeah,
on a Nissan SUV, the one on the back window is hooked all weird, but eh, it's okay.
yeah,
I live with a semi-functional back wiper,
there you go.
but yeah, it is something I just find interesting. Griffin just said here in the chat that it's still a big thing in Southeast America, so it's interesting. Of course, here in Quebec, we'd never add. Well, we were the moonshiners for the U.S. for a while,
Yeah, yeah.
so
Yeah,
there's that.
there's still moonshiners today. I mean, there's an actual TV show called Moonshiners.
Mhm.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched it, but
I've
yeah, they do
seen
the
an
same thing.
episode of it. I think while I was sitting at my parents, just trying to watch whatever while waiting for something.
Oh, okay.
I mean,
But
I understand people still doing it. I just find it. I find it interesting.
yeah,
I guess this is the kind of story. It's still fairly intemporal. You could set the original story during the prohibition, and then the current day story in the 60s and 70s, and it would probably work just as well. Because I haven't seen any, you know, fancy cell phones. I haven't seen any eye technology device or anything of the sort,
yeah,
which I think works better for detective stories, personally.
yeah. Yeah. You don't want to age your story too much. I remember watching the making of L.A. Confidential, and they didn't wear fedoras and they said
Mhm.
they want, because they didn't want to age the story. They wanted it to look like it could exist in any decade. And so if you watch LA Confidential, you won't see people walking around with fedoras and very uh, accoutrements of that
Mhm.
nature back then. And I think that that really is a great device, and I've tried to kind of gleam off that with doing this without aging it. Because honestly, like when you watch somebody who wasn't around in the 80s make an 80s movie and they have all the cliche stuff, it's hilarious, because it's like, no, we just walked around when I was a little kid with jeans and t-shirt, no different than now. So it's funny whenever you watch a commercial or something and you've got everybody's wearing neon and got the goofy hair. It's like, no, they really, unless you lived in New York or California, people didn't really dress that much like that.
Well, let's face it, for a lot of people in Hollywood and such, that's all they really think of is New York and California, right?
Yeah, unless you're the Farley brothers, or the it's Farley brothers, the Coen brothers.
Tyler Sheridan for
No, I said the Farley brothers, as
yeah.
in the guys that made Dumb and Dumber. I mentioned the
Mhm.
Coen brothers who make Fargo and Oh Brother
Douglas.
Where Art Thou. Yeah, those are the only ones that people
Well,
that.
I would say Tyler Sheridan as well for
Yeah, yep,
what he's doing is outside of that
yes.
bubble, which is a good thing, I think.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing what he's created.
I mean, what is amazing about it is that it kind of came out of nowhere,
Yeah,
and there
yeah,
hasn't been that many shows that have managed to catch that kind of attitude. Sons of Anarchy, in a way, but that was still a California thing in the end,
yeah. Well,
which is weird to think of, but it is.
I think those shows would be a lot more people if people popular if people would take a chance, but everybody wants to stay in those squares and not
Mhm.
offend anybody. So they all have to hit those same notes to make sure they don't get any mean people over the internet at them. So yeah, there'd be a lot more shows that would be popular like that, like a Yellowstone or Sons of Anarchy, if people would, allow creators to create and not try to pigeonhole everybody.
Mhm. I think that's an important thing to think of.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
mean,
shows that don't do that. Yeah.
have you thought of once the campaigns are over and things like that, putting your books up on things like Global Comics or Drive Through Comics, just to have possibly more reach?
I've thought about it, and I might. It's just some of those guys that I don't know. I've talked to a few people, and it's like, yeah, I get more people, more eyes on it, but as far as financially, I don't think it really does anything, because they're like, well, why go to your Kickstarter and pay, whatever you're offering, when I can get it for free sometimes, or for $2 for a subscription, and then the creator, they got to take their cut, so the creator doesn't really, might
Mhm.
make a few bucks. Now, I've only talked to a couple of people, maybe they just had bad experiences. So um I don't know, I keep hearing that Global Comics is dead, and I don't know if it's true or not, but I've
It's
heard that.
weird. It's weird because I've been going to Global Comics recently.
Yeah.
Um, I personally, I buy the books on
Oh, okay.
Global Comics rather than take their subscription. I've got way too many books already. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
I've got two huge stacks right next to me right now, a bunch of French comics. I've got, I mean, I've got just every week I get more books, and I can review only two books a week.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I don't read that many.
I did a machine gun review this week, just like 18 books, bang, 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 just not what I normally do, which is an actual analysis of the book.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it was different. I just wanted to get. I was busy this week, so that was easier for me to do at first. And the second thing, I just wanted to get some stuff, just some words out on some of those books. And one of the creators is the one that I've met 2 weeks ago now.
Okay.
Who basically started out. He put his book on Global Comics directly, and that's where I bought it. And
Oh, okay.
I mean, Global Comics, their indie portion is already pretty good, but now they're getting some mid-sized publishers to put some
Oh.
stuff on it as well. So it puts some eyes on the indies by having the bigger publisher there, because you're going to have like a page, let's say horror, and you're going to have some books by, let's say, Antarctic Press or Boom, and then you're going to have one or two indie titles next to them.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, if someone's like, okay, I want to read some horror, let's go look horror. Okay, this I know it's from Boom, it's going to be okay. Oh well, what's this? And
Mm-hmm.
you might have someone just click through. You're probably not going to make a huge amount off of this unless you're a really big creator.
Yeah.
But getting eyes on your book in the way will always help.
Yeah.
'Cause
Yeah, that might be something I should explore a little bit more.
it's not a bad idea, I believe, for most creators. There's some who are completely outside of it. If you look at let's say Rippaverse, or the really big ones nowadays,
Yeah.
those are in their own category, and
Oh
they've
yeah.
got their own mentality on things. But since you already have a digital offering, might not be a bad idea as an example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes. Maybe something I need to explore in the future.
Mm-hmm. Same with potentially second run campaigns on other sites. Might not be a bad idea either for creators at your level. Let's say not really starting out, but that want to get some things moving.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of discussion once again with Tyler and Patrick Higgins, who are basically saying Kickstarter's the king.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I tried
Uh,
Indiegogo one time and I did terrible. I sold like 5 comics, so I never
mhm,
went back, and that was a few years ago. So maybe
mhm,
maybe it's better now. But I like I said, Kickstarter was better as far as throwing your stuff out there in people's emails and helping promote you. Where Indiegogo was, unless it's changed.
mhm,
You put your comic out there. They don't even have an app for Indiegogo,
mhm,
and it's just you trying to promote it. Where Kickstarter will usually help put a few eyes on it.
mhm. I do know. I do know Indiegogo is really weird overall, because you've got some people who randomly get shadow banned for really no reason. That really doesn't help either.
Oh yeah, it
So
wouldn't be. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of gatekeeping, I guess, that goes on. I don't really know much about it. I'm totally outside that bubble. I'm just trying to get my comics made. So
it's not a bad thing to be outside the bubble, I would say.
yeah, yeah.
But
There's a lot of vitriol for no reason. It seems like.
well, that's the one of the big problem I have right now with a lot of indie comics, is that a lot of creators deal more in drama than in actual books.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, on your side, your campaigns that both I've seen for Alpha Dogs 4, the fulfillment was really, well, I'm not going to say seamless, but it seemed to have gone really well. Did you have any real issues or?
No, Alpha Dogs, Alpha Dogs has been able to gain a lot more popularity than Dinosaur Detective, which
Mhm,
it's dogs. So, of course, it's already going to be near and dear to your heart. You
mhm,
can shoot and kill anybody on screen, even kids, and people don't blink an eye, but you hurt a dog and people are going to want to chop your freaking fingers off. So, people always have a soft spot for dogs. So,
mhm,
really, Alpha Dogs kind of help sell itself. You see this big dog.
mhm,
Redemption Detective is very much more of a niche audience.
mhm,
So it's been tougher, a lot more tougher. I was funded on Alpha Dogs in like 5 days for Alpha
mhm,
Dogs 4, so it was my best campaign. Redemption Detective has been kind of my worst campaign, really, which
mhm,
has been tough, but it's been tough for everybody this month on Kickstarter. For some reason, a lot of people have complained. It's kind of been the talk of the indie comics right now. Well, the ones
mhm,
who do the crowdfunding is Kickstarter has kind of taken a poop this month. So, and I can definitely attest to that. So
Hmm.
it's just you got to hustle a little bit more and try to get your product out there, because I believe that it's a really terrific story if people would just give it a chance to read it. Like I said, you're not going to read anything similar to it out there. Eventually people got to get sick of superhero stories, I would think.
Well, it's a too big genre right now in American comics is horror and superheroes. Superheroes has always been around, obviously.
Yeah.
Horror at a dip with the comics code period.
Hmm.
But nowadays, it's a bit of a sad statement, but almost everything that I see is either or superhero horror. And
Yeah.
you've got that with the big creators as well, which is, I mean, I like various things and a little bit more variety in my comics. We do get some sci-fi, let's face it, every once in a
Yeah.
while.
Yep,
But
yep. And people are still fans of fantasy. If you get a good artist in there, fantasy will sell pretty good in comics still. If a lot of it, most of it's depending on your artwork.
mhm.
That's a
For
big seller.
fantasy, yeah, fantasy
Yeah.
has a very weird genre because it is more about the art than the writing in a lot of
Oh yeah,
fantasy work.
definitely. Because you're
Well, for
creating these
horrors,
worlds.
for horror books and thriller books, I think the writing is more important in the long
Yeah,
run.
absolutely, absolutely. I've seen a lot of um, fantasy books sell really well on Kickstarter. It's like, God, what this looks like everything I've seen before, but it's just, the art, the fantastical art that
Hmm.
they create for these worlds is what really is a selling piece.
Hmm.
But mine's, for my comic, it definitely touches on the horror realm. But it's much more of kind of a supernatural story, so you're not going to have the cool ghouls that you that you see in some horror stories, but it's definitely has a horror element that I think people will enjoy if they give it a read.
It's in that supernatural thriller genre,
Yeah.
I would say,
Yeah.
a little bit like, let's say, Seven and a
Oh,
few of
definitely.
those, which is a genre that is not alive and well. I'm not going to say it's alive and well because
Yeah.
we
Well, it
don't
just
get that
takes
many of them.
no, it just take really all it takes is that one really good original story that might help set it off. I went with that Alpha Dogs. There wasn't a lot of dog comics of a serious tone going on, and then Stray Dogs came out. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but
Hmm.
that was like the biggest image sales of Image comic book that year for a couple of years was the
Hmm.
Stray Dogs, which was a serial killer that kills women and he kidnaps their dogs. And it's,
Okay.
I know, but it's a great story. It was Tony Fleece and Trish Forstner
Hmm.
created it, drew it, and it was actually a really good series. So that kind of helped. I think helped Alpha Dogs. I actually got the artist Trish Forstner to do sketch covers of the
Hmm.
Alpha Dogs for campaign 2 and 3.
Hmm.
She was busy for 4, so uh, that was a big. I think that helped Alpha Dogs. And there was another comic book, Good Boy, basically John Wick, but take the dog instead of the person, and that was a big hit too. So Alpha Dogs kind of came in at a good time too when it did, and
Hmm.
it was it's not like it's usually popular or anything, but it's definitely got a little bit of a following. So hopefully it'll. I was hoping more of the Alpha Dogs fans would transition to the Downstar, but it's happened a little bit, but not as much as I'd like to.
Well, it's two very different things in the
Yeah,
end. That's
definitely.
part of it, I would say. Probably fifth print run. That's okay. That is significant here. Just seeing that it's a fifth print for a book nowadays is very, very rare. I do know
Yeah,
Image doesn't do very big print run for a lot of those books at first, so there's
yeah,
that. But um, yeah, I understand a little bit. I do find it weird personally that more people are not transitioning from one to the other. Um, I'm not sure why, honestly, because on my side, from what I know, normally I do follow authors or artists more than what they're doing.
Yeah, so do I.
So if I see something by Chip Zdarsky, generally I'll have a look at it, at least as an example.
Hmm. Yeah,
So it's life, I
but
guess.
yeah, yeah. Well, I've had 40% of the first, so Profit Dogs for 40% of the people I retain for Dime Store as alpha dogs. So
Mhm,
hopefully in the campaign's too early that more people, I think it's at like 20% right now. So
mhm.
which would kind of make sense because I'm almost to the halfway point. So hopefully get some more of those in there as it goes
Well,
along. We'll
the
see.
unfortunately the economy doesn't help in this
No.
particular market either. This is very not only niche, but it's a superfluous thing when you have to think about, well, am I going to buy a comic or am I going to buy, you know,
Toilet paper.
toilet paper? Well, some comics are toilet paper at the same time, so that's okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh no, that's a really mean thing to say about some DC comics and some Marvel comics. I shouldn't
Yeah.
do that.
I don't read them anymore, so I wouldn't know.
um, I still read some. I think
Yeah.
it's important as me as a reviewer and
Yeah.
potentially someone who wants to go in creative at some point in the future,
Uh-huh.
uh, to still read them. Not
Yeah.
all of them because you'd get broke, even if you were
Yeah.
rich.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's things. There's actually gems that I found from both of the, well, not Marvel. I don't give a penny to Disney. That's for another reason altogether.
Yeah.
I'm not, but in the DC stuff, they've got some really awful, awful books. But they do have every once in a while something that's fun or something that's just imaginative enough
Yeah.
that it helps out. And it's sad that we're at that point here where we blacklist entire companies or blacklist entire artists and authors. So I
Yeah.
don't know.
Yeah. I've
But
been. Yeah.
that goes both ways. However,
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, trying to get a job being published at Image or at DC or Marvel nowadays is extremely difficult if you're, let's say, part of any form of majorities.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
that's a big problem, I do believe.
Yeah. And one reason I think people aren't going to publishers, which I intend to, but is that they're not really making much money. They're not taking on a lot of new people either because, um, well, the Kickstarter effect for one reason.
Hmm.
There's a lot of people. The Kickstarter now is a lot of people consider the third biggest publisher now. So, um, I'm like, well, why am I paying? The other these indie publishers are getting 30%, 35%. Diamond's getting 50%. So it's really doesn't really behoove them too much sometimes to even go to a publisher. So when they
Hmm.
can pocket all the money off the Kickstarter because they've built themselves a brand. So yeah, there's definitely a lot of people that, not a lot, but there are some people that make a living just off making their comics on Kickstarter.
Well, I would say a lot of these people, they also have, they have a YouTube, they have a TikTok,
Yeah,
and those things are pretty massive at growing their brand. I think
yeah,
that's what really helps for these people.
hmm,
But it can
yeah,
also be a negative thing because, like we were saying a little bit earlier, there's a lot of drama that comes with that.
yeah, yeah. One comment, and you can have your whole career, implode.
Hmm. Which is maybe a good thing for you. I haven't seen you stir any drama in any direction.
No, I can't afford to.
Which is a
No,
very good thing. I think if you focus on your work, um, it's not a bad thing. But growing your brand is difficult nowadays. I mean, I'm a brand new creator. I mean, I've been at this for less than a year at this
yeah,
point, and I mean, it's not easy growing on any of those platforms.
no, it's not. I've put out video, I put all my trailers on my own YouTube page, and to get only 15 hits, and yeah, so I must be doing something wrong because I, 'cause I never get any views on my YouTube channel. But I'm just all I put on there is the trailer. So
Hmm. I understand what unfortunately a lot of new creators are going through. All right. We're just a little bit past the 1 hour mark for me, at least.
hmm
Um, do you have anything you want to say before we end for today?
not really. Just go check out the Kickstarter, the trailers. There's two trailers on there, and both of them are
Mhm.
really great, top notch. If those don't get your interest in the comic, I'm out of ideas because they're pretty awesome trailers that give you a good feel for the comic book that you're going to read. And also, if you want to hit me up on social media, I'm on Twitter at Real Alpha Dogs, and I'm on Instagram at Alpha_Dogs_comic. And if you want a free issue one, I'll send you the digital. And if you like it, then you can get the other issues that are out there.
Wonderful. Well, I hope everybody has a very nice rest of their days. And anybody that's watching on the replay, I hope you enjoy the bit of discussions that we've had here. And I'll say to everyone, keep on reading comics, keep on enjoying them. I'll keep reviewing them, analyzing them, and I'll see you guys later.
All right, thanks for having me on.